This war's chewing up the weak and the innocent. No one stands up for them, but Steel Meridian.
In the world of Warframe, there's very few groups of people who the Tenno can truly call friends and allies. At least, friends and allies with actual power. Yes, we know the Ostron villages and those who live in Fortuna, but these aren't exactly powerful groups of people. And without Tenno intervention, I'd argue they're completely helpless. Without the Tenno, Fortuna would still be complete slaves to Nef Anyo's rules, and it's likely that people of Ostron would have been completely conquered at this point, even with the defense that their tower provides. I'm sure you're seeing my point here. Factions, being the most obvious point of Tenno help, are generally rather useless without actual help from the Tenno in the first place. I mean, just look at the Entrati family. Things wouldn't be going so well over there without the Tenno. There's obviously a decent amount of exceptions to this, and if you want to comment them, I encourage you to, because I'm not going to mention all of them. But the biggest and most obvious exception to this rule is the original 6 faction syndicates who were around before the Tenno even came back in a meaningful way, for the most part. These 6 factions are, of course, the Arbiters of Hexus, the Steel Meridian, the New Loka, the Perrin Sequence, the Red Veil, and Cephalon Suda. All these factions hold considerable sway in the universe, not to the degree of the Grineer Corpus, of course, but they are absolutely not groups that you want to cross. In fact, they're so powerful that all of them feel comfortable attempting to attack the Tenno even. I'm sure we've all had our close calls with syndicate attacks while we were leveling up our unranked weapons and frames. For some reason, they not always, only attack me when I'm using level 1 everything, and it just pisses me off. Anyway, the point is that these factions are absolutely not helpless, and are willing to throw their weight around. This, of course, brings me to the subject of this video, the Steel Meridian, one of the few actual powerful sources of good in the universe. Of all these original 6 factions, the Tenno have received the most help from the Steel Meridian, and it's not even close, which is why we're talking about them today. The Steel Meridian, in my opinion, is the most powerful force in the universe that generally pursues moral goals besides the Tenno. Their in-game description is, the Grineer are not often seen as valorous individuals, but time and again, members of their leadership have displayed a certain code of honor. Members of Steel Meridian set aside their former allegiances to defend those who cannot defend themselves. I mean, this lays it out pretty plainly. Now, I'm not saying that the Steel Meridian doesn't need help from the Tenno, because that would be a blatant lie. What I'm saying is that even without the Tenno, the Steel Meridian have seen some success in their goals, and will continue to see success without the Tenno, just to a lesser extent. So now, let's go ahead and talk about some of these things the Steel Meridian has done, how they've interacted with the Tenno, and of course, some of their notable members and affiliates as well. The leader and most important member of the Steel Meridian is Cresta Tau. While Cresta is extremely important and one of the most powerful individuals in the Origin system, we know surprisingly little about her. I mean, she leads the Steel Meridian, a top 10 most powerful group in the Origin system. I think we've maybe had 2 or 3 full conversations with her, which is made even crazier by the fact that she has worked so close with the Tenno. And on top of that, we know incredibly little about her history, but I'll go ahead and tell you what we do know real quick. Apparently, she was working for Sargus Rook before she decided to defect from the Grineer. And she was actually one of his most elite captains. This makes a lot of sense in all honesty, though. It explains how she's such a skilled leader and why defecting Grineer would just automatically accept her, because she used to be a leader of a large number of Grineer soldiers under probably the most respected general in the entire army. However, her leadership position under Sargus Rook is a double-edged sword. This is because that while it meant she was a more effective leader that Grineer were familiar with, it also meant she has to face the wrath of Sargus Rook. While it's common for Grineer to absolutely hate defectors, Sargus Rook takes his hate for betrayers to the next level, and believes the only cure for defection or betrayal is death. And probably some torture too, if we're being honest. This is seen with how he responds to the Grustrag 3 and the Kavor, both of which he wishes a very, very painful death. Throughout the Steel Meridian's existence, they've had constant conflicts with Sargus Rook's forces because of this. Another notable member of the Steel Meridian is Clem, whose involvement I can't really say for sure. He used to be the medallion trader for the Steel Meridian, and he's still seen occasionally trading medallions with the Tenno, but is usually seen more involved with Darvo. My thoughts on this is that Darvo and the Steel Meridian has some sort of deal where Darvo gives them information on where important supplies that help the cause are, and I assume that Darvo pulls in like a cut from what they get from the operations. I can't imagine that Clem is involved with the strategy or goals behind the Steel Meridian. Is more of just a soldier or enforcer that carries out the intentions of the Steel Meridian without questioning too much what he's doing. Because I mean, like, let's be honest guys, he says 2 words, so. I'm not trying to hate here. Chances are he's not the brain trust behind the Steel Meridian. Anyway, besides Clem and Crescentile, there aren't really any more notable members. They really don't give us a ton of information on these guys. It's probably best for them to be secretive, though. However, Call is an associate of the Steel Meridian. Whenever wanting to be part of the faction, Call does send a large amount of Grineer he frees their way, operating essentially as a recruiter for the Steel Meridian, even though he isn't technically part of the group. The three biggest operations that the Steel Meridian are involved in, that we know of, are Rathum, the Pyrus Project, and the Pacifism Defect, all three of which are morally good operations that showcase the righteousness of the Steel Meridian. The Pyrus Project is when the Steel Meridian offered to help restore the relays that were destroyed by Councilor Vahek and the Fomorian fleet. I honestly don't think there's ever been a situation in the entire history of Warframe where a group besides the Tenno did something as helpful as rebuilding an entire relay. Anyway, Sargus Rook attempted to lead a squadron of Grineer to stop the Pyrus Project, or well, a force much larger than just a squadron, but the Steel Meridian and the Tenno combined their strengths to destroy all attempts to stop the rebuilding of the relay. This was obviously a huge help to the entire galaxy, and was all spearheaded by the Steel Meridian, who organized it all and came up with the idea. W Steel Meridian! Gotta love those guys, even if they allegedly cannibalize the other Grineer that they kill, which is a bit weird. I'm not actually sure if eating each other is lore accurate, but for some reason I've seen a lot of people talking about it in all these forums I've been looking at while doing research, and it's pretty funny and weird, so I just threw that in there as something like a little bit of fun to contemplate if you guys are hearing this now. They eat each other? I don't know. Let me know if you guys can figure out if they actually eat each other or not in the comments below. For some reason, a lot of people seem to think they do. Anyway, this operation obviously had a ton of help from the Tenno, and it'd be wrong to pretend that there was any dreams of this being successful without help from the Tenno, but I still think this is a important mission to talk about when it comes to the Steel Meridian, because it was their idea, and the scale of their operation was massive. So while they maybe didn't have the means to protect a huge space station against the strongest force in the universe besides an armor, they did have the resources to build it, and the connections to protect it. And once again, this is one of the very few situations where someone is helping out the Tenno. I mean, the relay being reconstructed will assist nearly everyone who's not Grineer, even the Corpus to an extent, but still, it's primarily made for the Tenno. Funnily enough, Sargus Rook sent the Grustrag 3 to stop the reconstruction of this relay, even though they have also betrayed the Grineer. No matter what, Sargus Rook took a small win in this situation, with either the Grustrag 3 getting killed, or a large amount of Steel Meridian getting killed. And well, he got both of those things, even if he didn't actually manage to stop the relay from being constructed. Anyway, enough yapping about the Pyrus Project. I feel like that I've been a little repetitive here, but I just wanted to really get across the amount of strength and influence it takes to rebuild something like a relay, which just shows the Steel Meridian's power. But let's talk about the Pacifism Defect for a bit now. The Pacifism Defect is a quest centered around the Kavor Defectors. The Kavor Defectors are a group of Grineer who left the Grineer Empire and are seeking a life without having to fight, hence the name of the quest, the Pacifism Defect. Anyway, a large amount of these defectors came from the army of Sargus Rook. We all know how much Rook hates defectors. While fleeing from Rook, the Karvos defectors somehow ran into the infestation in the middle of space. I mean, I don't really know how they managed this. Maybe they ran into a derelict ship or something, but even then, why would they do that? Like, you have to see the ship full of infested coming towards you, right? I guess the game isn't really too clear on how infestation got on the ship, but somehow, the Karvos defectors were completely overran with infestation. Because of this, the Steel Meridian stepped in and then requested help from the Tenno to help evacuate what survivors there were after an infected outbreak. After some initial success, Sargus Rook got kind of pissed, since he was hoping the infestation would kill all of the defectors. So he sent in Mannix to help fight against the Tenno and Steel Meridian. To make things quick, since this script has been destroying my brain cells, I've been grinding too hard recently on content, my brain's like hemorrhaging, I've actually been kind of sick, I don't know if you guys can tell in my voice, but I have a little bit of a cold going on for the past few videos. It's just like I've been dying, guys. Anyway, the Steel Meridian and Tenno were mostly successful, and saved a large amount of the Karvos defectors, who now live peacefully under the protection umbrella of the Steel Meridian. The final operation that we know a lot about, Rathum, that the Steel Meridian are heavily involved in, is just as morally righteous as the other two. Kayla D. Thane, check out my video on her. Like and subscribe, baby. W plug. Well, anyway, she imprisoned a large amount of Grineer defectors, hoping to escape the Grineer Empire. She was planning to make these defectors fight for their freedom in Rathum, which would result in all of them dying in absolutely horrific and violent ways due to how incredibly unfair Rathum is. The Steel Meridian reached out to the Tenno and asked them to take the place of the defectors in Rathum, which eventually led to the death of Kayla Dithane, because after the Tenno were successful in Rathum, she claimed they were cheating and she was going to kill the defectors anyway. In the end, the defectors were saved and taken in by the Steel Meridian. Besides for these 3 larger operations, the Steel Meridian are of course completing all sorts of smaller operations that don't get named to fight back against injustice in the galaxy. Particularly Grineer injustice. Anyway, the Steel Meridian have honestly been mostly uninvolved in operations at large, and like Cresta Tau, we don't know a ton about the Steel Meridian besides the surface level things I've mentioned. I really hope we soon get a larger understanding of their operations, who's involved and how they function overall, but as of right now, our understanding is pretty limited, besides for the fact they do seem to be very morally righteous and one of the biggest players in the Origin system at large. Somehow, throughout this entire video, I've yet to mention that the Steel Meridian are based out of Ironwake on Earth. I mean, isn't it crazy that the biggest base of operations for the Steel Meridian is right under the Grineer's nose on Earth? You'd think that they'd have some sort of idea that the Steel Meridian was on Earth. Like maybe a ship accidentally flies over Ironwake or something. But I guess it could make sense since the Grineer aren't really trying to explore those forests anyway too much because of how dangerous they are. Anyway, I hope you guys have a little bit more respect for the Steel Meridian after this video. I really wish there was more to them, like there was more lore to talk about when it comes to them, but I'm just happy they exist and there's some lore there. It's cool to at least have one other fighter out there who's trying to help the system and fighting for those who can't defend themselves. But that's all I have to say about the Steel Meridian. Hope you guys enjoyed this video, learned something new, or at least got reminded of something you've heard before. I really appreciate all the support from everybody, and it's honestly amazing to have this little Warframe community carved out here. A huge shout out to my members, Jay and Sign Up King 5000. Those guys are fucking awesome. I just used my one curse word for this whole video right there. And, you know, they're helping support the channel. Become a member today to further support this channel, even though you've already supported a ton, you beautiful bastard, by watching this far into the video. Is bastard a curse word? Because if it is a curse word, I've now used it 3 different curse words. So I used bastard twice and fuck once. Well, that means I've used 6 curse words now. Wait, or 5. Anyway, I think I'm good for the monetization still. I'm just saying, guys, there is a limit, apparently. But anyway, stay blessed, everyone. I hope to see you in the next one. And like and subscribe, baby. Let's go.